Good afternoon. Just waiting for people to join.
Hi, James.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Yeah. It's the end of the week, which is good.
Always good.
Yeah. You got anything good planned for the weekend?
It's the Lantern Festival this weekend. So I've got some friends taking their kids to that, and I'm gonna jump on the after party.
The what festival?
The Lantern Festival,
Oh, yeah.
like the midwinter carnival.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that'll
Yeah.
be nice. I hope it's not too cold.
Yeah, and we're farewelling a doctor who's from our service tonight, so we're going for a work drink. So that'd be nice.
Oh, that's good. So just while we're waiting for people to join up, if you could just a quick poll, if you could put in the chat on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with analyzing data in Excel? Elvira says 2 to 3. Rennie, how comfortable are you with analyzing data in Excel?
Oh, sorry. I just joined only in the last
That's okay.
few seconds. It's not too bad.
Not too bad.
I just have to, I'm not formally trained to use Excel or anything, but just that I have to, if I put a little bit of attention and time into it, it's not too bad, but it doesn't come as, automatically.
Yeah. Okay. Sarah says you find it difficult to create charts. Still find your feet with data. Okay, good. Great. Okay, so that gives me an idea of what sort of level to pitch it at. So I'm just going to open up the presentation and we'll get started. Just going to share slideshow. Okie doke. I hope you can see the first slide. Good. So yeah, this session is talking about interpreting data. So that's in terms of quality improvement, the main tools are run charts, control charts, and then there are a few other charts that we will talk about as well. And at the end, then that will be the first sort of 20 minutes. And then we're actually going to do an exercise together and we'll use some data in Excel together and try and produce a chart. So if you got Excel there as well on your computer, then that would be great because we'll be doing that together. So a run chart is probably the best way to quickly show data in a quality improvement project. On the x-axis, it's always it's always time. So it's either consecutive patients or events, or it's each day or each week or each year, but it's always time. And then on the y-axis, you have what you're measuring each day or each time you measure it. So each day you might be counting the number of falls on a ward, or each time a patient comes, you might be measuring their blood pressure or something like that. So what you get then is this really fuzzy line, which goes up and down a lot because there is a lot of variation between one day to the next or one patient to the next. But that's useful to see in itself, and we'll come on to why that is. On the run chart, you have each individual point plotted, and you draw a straight line between the two. And then you can also draw a median, which you calculate from all these points. And you can add a goal line, so where you want to get to in terms of the median. The other really important part about run charts is annotation. So if you do a particular intervention and you're wanting to see a change, that's at the time point where you annotate, okay, I introduced a new system for restraining patients in beds, and I want to see if that now affects the rate of falls. So the annotation is really important, because without that, you don't know what is affecting the trend. So a run chart, sorry, I'll go back a minute. So a run on a run chart is where you get the line going consistently up or consistently down. So for example, here where there's 2 points and one is going up, that's a run. Similarly, if it goes down, that is a run. So you can start to count the number of runs on a chart based on the consecutive trend. So here's an exercise here. See if you can count how many runs on this chart. It's a little bit tricky. So I'll give you the answer here. There's 5 runs. Hang on, I gave you the wrong definition of run. Don't know why I did that. Sorry. There are 5 runs on here, and I'll tell you why there are 5 runs. The run is where you have a point, consecutive points, either above or below the median. Sorry, I forgot that very important detail. So here's got 1 run. Here's another run above the median, below the median, another one, then another one above the median, and then all this is below the median. So there's 5 runs. The reason why counting the number of runs is important is that you can then look on a chart to determine whether your run chart has enough runs on it. If it has enough runs on it, then that means it's probably varying within a controlled manner. But if there are too few runs on it, then that suggests that something is influencing your process and causing it to change, either because you intentionally did that with a project, or unintentionally there's been external forces on your thing, like a new policy or something that's come into play. So what we're really talking about here is types of variation. So on a run chart, you have 2 types of variation. You have common cause variation, which is the natural variation that a system would produce. So like if a factory is making a widget for a car, the machine will be able to make this particular part exactly 3 centimeters in diameter. But of course, it's not exactly 3. It might be 3 centimeters, give or take, like 0.2 of a millimeter either way. So if you actually did a really accurate measurement of that widget, you would see that the first one was 3 centimeters, the second one was 3.01, the next one, and so on. But it all varies within controlled limits. And you see it goes up and down, but over the course of time, the median doesn't change. So that's common cause variation. It's a system producing something within an acceptable margin of error. Whereas special cause variation is where something happens and you're not expecting it, and it's way outside what you would normally expect. So say this machine suddenly produced a widget of 5 centimeters, and that was after a long period of producing a very consistent diameter. Well, then you're thinking, well, what happened there? It's not just normal for the machine to do this. There must have been something that prompted it to do that. And so you would see that something has happened. You would go and investigate, and then you might come back and see that, oh, that day, that shift, there was a new person on and they didn't have their training or something like that. So that is special cause variation. It's basically something external to your system influencing it and changing the process. So there are many sort of signals that you get from a chart that might suggest that there is special cause variation. So the first rule is that if there are more than 6 or more consecutive points on one side of the baseline, okay, that's one of the rules. The next rule is a trend. So 5 or more consecutive points going in the same direction. So one going up here and one going down, for example. Rule 3 is too many or too few runs. So that was the first thing I was talking about. So this chart here only has 2 runs, one above the baseline and one below. So you could maybe say that actually the overall there's a downward trend and something is pushing it down, something is influencing it. And then the last one is the example I made where that widget is suddenly too big. It's an astronomical point, something well outside, something caused that to happen. So these are the 4 rules of special cause variation. And if you notice any of these rules in a run chart, then that would help you say something is going on here. And the most common place that you would ask yourself that question is if you've collected a whole load of data, you've done a change in your project, and now you're trying to see, did that change actually make an improvement? Well, you would annotate it, and then you would see if there any special cause variation. And if there is, then it's likely that your intervention caused the special cause variation, and hopefully that's in the right direction of making an improvement. So is there any non-random variation here? Yes, there is. There's an astronomical point, one that's well above the goal line. And then there's also a trend because there's 5 consecutive points going downwards here. So that is a run chart. And the best way to get used to run charts is actually to do them. And then when you get some data in front of you, try and interpret it using those 4 simple rules. And the beauty of run charts is that you don't need any special software to do it. You can actually even do this with a pen and paper. That's actually how it started, often in a factory. It was just a piece of graph paper, and somebody would diligently plot up and down as time goes by. And then somebody would come along and circle the special cause variation, if there was any, and make an investigation into it. So you can get really low tech, and I love actually low tech because it makes things more accessible to people who are on a busy ward, for example, and you're walking by a notice board and you want people to engage with it. A pen and paper is brilliant, much better than in these fancy computers that you need to log into, and sometimes you've forgotten your password or you don't know what system, you don't know what link to go to. Pen and paper is really good and engaging. It does engage people. So don't forget about low tech solutions, even with data. So then there are other types of charts also in quality improvement which are useful. A Shoehart chart is basically a fancy run chart. On it, it has some upper and lower control limits based on the standard deviation. And they use that a lot in manufacturing, for example. Histogram is basically a distribution. It shows you the frequency. So you would normally plot it if you're trying to look for a normal distribution or whether it's curved, skewed one side to the other, and that will help you understand your whole population. A Pareto chart is probably my next favorite chart after the run chart. And that's a really good way to ask the question, what is causing the majority of the problems here? So if I was going to go and do a project, where am I going to focus my efforts to get the best bang for my buck? Well, a Pareto chart will answer that question for you. And a scatter plot, probably the least used, because it is there to try and demonstrate a relationship between two things. But then if you try and do that in healthcare, people always come back to you and say, well, this isn't a clinical trial. You haven't done this, this, and this, and this, so this is meaningless. So I try not to use scatter plots, especially in front of doctors, because they're just too skeptical. So yeah, this is an example of a shoe heart chart. I don't really use them a lot, to be honest, because again, they're too complicated really for a lot of people, especially when you're just trying to get a message across rather than prove something. A run chart is good enough. There's a histogram, as I was saying, it kind of shows you the distribution. So in this one here, the turnaround time in days for ECGs. If you're trying to analyze, the weight for a department for this, and it shows this one here is called a bimodal distribution. You got a whole load at the 1 to 2 day, and then you got a peak around about 13 to 16 day. So bimodal distribution. And what would explain this? These are probably inpatients, 1 to 2 days, and then 13 to 16 days, these are outpatients. So there's two populations on one chart. That's how you might interpret this. If you were to then separate these charts out into inpatients and outpatients, then you might just get a single distribution on each chart. So this is a Pareto chart. I'm talking about my next favorite one. It tells you, where am I going to concentrate my efforts? So asking the question, what types of errors occurred during the setup for an operation? You go out, you measure all the different types of errors and when they occur, and you get them in categories: wrong supplier, excess count, too few count. And then you plot them like this, and you see, okay, well, what makes up 80% of the errors? So there's this Pareto line, which is a cumulative percentage. And when you get to 80%, you draw a line down here, and all the categories to the left of this are the ones to focus on. And the ones to the right, they're important, but you're not going to get much return for trying to improve these things, because each one is not a lot of problem. So that's a Pareto chart. And then a scatter plot, as I said, shows maybe there's a relationship between staff satisfaction and hours worked. And maybe goes to prove a point that we should all work less hours. But as you can see, your scatter plot falls over straight away with but no, but this, but no. So yeah, it's just an interesting thing. So I'm going to show you this video just to illustrate the point a bit more. And it's always great to see other industries and how they operate, because that gives you great ideas. Now I just need to share the sound. I think it's this one. Wave at me if you can't hear the sound from the video.
If we're going to try to do systems thinking, so appreciation of systems is a fundamental part of the science of improvement. And if I'm helping somebody, and so I need to appreciate the system, well, I have to be able to see that system. I remember when I would do work in auto organizations, they actually designed the big production plants there where you could go up to the very top of it and stand in the scaffolding and actually see the system working and how it's flowing and so forth to do that. In healthcare, it's sometimes very difficult to see the system. Hey, the system's a problem here. Well, where's the system? I can't see it. Where do we look at it? So what tools do we have that? So tools like flow charting, process mapping, and so forth that allows us to see the system is a pretty important tool. On the other hand, as I see people, if I tell people you need to have flow chart, they get bogged down in that tool. So doing flow charting, drawing systems maps is not improvement. It allows us to see the system to make that happen. So I'm always careful about ever overemphasizing any tool there to do that. Probably if there's one that I wouldn't do without on any improvement work or projects is a time series chart, a run chart, shoe-heart control chart over time there. I always want to see that improvement's temporal. We have a past, we have the current, and we have the future. And I want a picture that helps everybody see that the same way. And so a run chart, a shoe-heart chart, I'll always have that on improvement project.
Great. So, let me get. Just before we go on to a bit of a discussion, has anybody got any questions about run charts and all these different types of charts and stuff?
Sorry, James. I'm sorry, my camera is not working, but I'm still struggling with the runs part of it because I can't seem to get it right in my head as to what the run actually looks like because it all looks different.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just me, but the other stuff is all familiar and makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So a run is one or more consecutive points above or below the baseline. So this point here is below the baseline, so that's actually one run. And then the next run is above the baseline, next one below. Next run has got 2 points above the baseline. Next run here has got all these points below the baseline. Incidentally, any point that sits right on the median doesn't count as a run at all.
And what about the ones that cross? Because there's a couple in there that have, you know, the line crosses, but it just depends on where the point sits.
So yeah, ignore the lines and just think about the points. Yeah.
Okay.
So that gives you the number of runs. And then you can get a reference chart. So if your chart has 30 points in total, then the minimum number of runs that you should see on that chart, I think from memory, is 7. But don't quote me on that. You can get a reference chart basically. So if your number of points is less, then it will be less runs, and if your number of points is more, then it'll be more runs. So that's a very easy rule to follow. Generally speaking, a run chart that is that you can analyze properly is a chart that's got probably at least 30 points on it, which is good to know, because that means, okay, I need to go for 30 consecutive patients or 30 consecutive days or something before I get a really good run chart. But at the same time, it also tells you I don't need to collect hundreds of data. I can stop after I get to 30 if I've got an answer to my question.
Thank you. I think I was getting confused with the lines, and just taking those out makes more sense.
Good. Any other questions about charts? Okay, so a few questions here, really. So when embarking on healthcare improvement, why is it so important to see and appreciate the full complexity of a system? Has anybody got any answers there or any questions around that sort of topic?
I think the more complex the system, the more variables you have to look at. I mean, variables to improve, but there's also more variation possible.
Yeah, correct. And you need to understand what influences the system, and knowing all the bits that influence the system is important. Or else what will happen is that you will identify a potential way to improve your system, and it might not work because you've neglected another part that's influencing it quite strongly, and you've not done anything about that particular aspect of the system. So yeah, I agree with that. we'll skip to this last one here. So this is a good point that he makes about getting bogged down with overusing improvement tools. It's I kind of made that point about, you know, data and using fancy analytics, but actually sometimes pen and paper is the best thing to do that. Has anybody experienced that in their areas where you think about a project and now you get onto the data and then the whole project just goes completely standstill at that point?
I can just talk a little bit about a project that we are working on at the moment.
Yeah.
This is more a service-wide project with the mental health services. And we are at the moment doing some data collection around the physical health monitoring for mental health consumers. And we are doing a bit of qualitative data collection as well as quantitative data. And I can see us, but particularly the quantitative data, the amount of, the group of people that we have identified, we should collect data. And we haven't got to that stage of using the improvement tools, but the number of clients even we've identified and the way the group is thinking, how much data you have to collect and what sort of way you have to collect. So yeah, lots there, what my point is that by using lots, that could make us get lost and not really get anywhere.
Yes, absolutely. So a couple of sort of tips there. The first thing is, before you start thinking of the data you're collecting, you have to think about the questions that you're asking in your improvement project. And the questions that you ask relate back to what is your overall goal of improvement? So what are you trying to improve? And how will you know that the change is an improvement? So basically thinking about the model for improvement and those questions that come before collecting data. It's really important to hone that down and also to not ask too many questions. So what is your really the main goal that you want to get to? Is it improving patient experience, or is it improving waiting times? Or maybe both of those things, but okay, within the patient experience bucket, what is the biggest problem at the moment? And that's where a Pareto chart might help you. So then you would go along, collect just enough data to answer that question and come back, okay, in the patient experience, we found that the top 3 areas where there's poor patient experience is waiting for an appointment, sitting in the waiting room, or waiting to hear results afterwards, or something like that. And then now you've answered that question, okay, those are the most important things. In terms of the different types of data, you touched on quantitative and qualitative, and I think that's great to think of both. One common mistake is to try and turn qualitative data into quantitative data. So you go along and you collect it, and then you say, how are we going to analyze this? And then you start trying to pick out loads of, do that analysis where you pick out the commonest word and then list how many have mentioned this. I don't think you should try and change qualitative data into quantitative data. I think you should analyze it as it is, which means reading it and then sitting down together and say, okay, what comes out at you as the most important thing? And having a discussion about it, or using a mind map technique where you kind of like review things and start to connect themes and ideas together. The brilliant thing about qualitative data is that is where you will get really good information about where the problems sit and what you can do to improve those problems. The role of quantitative data is less about finding out and describing the problem, and is a lot more about really measuring the problem that you know in your head and measuring that before, during, and after your change project. So think about it like that. Qualitative data is investigative. Quantitative data is for monitoring, sort of, so to speak. So if you think about it like that, then you can probably reduce how much data you're collecting in both spheres as well. That's a great question. Any further questions about what I just said? No, great. Okay, so we're gonna do an exercise now. Let me just stop the share. We're going to, first of all, I'm going to drop into the chat an Excel sheet, which I would like you to open. Okay, and while you're doing that, I'm going to share the same one on my screen. Okay, so first of all, can you see my spreadsheet? Yeah. Is it too small for you? Do you want me to zoom in a bit? No, that's good enough. Okay, great. Excellent. So I'll just give you a moment to get your spreadsheet up, and you'll need to somehow see both your spreadsheet and my spreadsheet so you can work along. So if you can try and arrange so you can see both. I will make mine a little bit bigger because I think that will help. Okay, so what you'll have is two sheets on that spreadsheet, and we're going to first work with the run chart data sheet. Okay, so here you've basically got a very simple data set. You got number of complaints collected on consecutive days. Okay, and as you see, you've got about 31 data points, so good enough for a run chart. So the first thing you want to do is you want to turn this into a table. Now, a table is a way of telling Excel that this is a contiguous data set, and it helps Excel understand the data a bit better. So what you want to do is go to Insert, and then click on one of the cells, typically the first cell, but any of the cells will do as long as it's a contiguous data set, there's no missing data, it will pick up the whole range of data. So you click on that, and then you click Table, which is one of the icons up on your ribbon, or you can put Control-T on your keyboard. And then it will ask you, is this the data you want to turn into a table? It will draw a little dotted line around it, and you can quickly scan down and see it's got all the data in that border. And it also says in this dialog, create the table, and this little checkbox, my table has headers. And in this case, it does. The header is complaint. So you want to click that so it knows that this isn't the data, this is the heading for that column. So you click OK, and you see it changes into this colorful table, and you think, okay, well, all it's done is it formatted, but it's also told Excel how to use this data better. So that's really important. You'll see also you can actually start to sort things using this thing, which is useful. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to insert a column to the left, and we're going to rename that column Day. Okay, because we want to basically, we're creating a label for the x-axis, and then we're going to put in.
James, can I ask, how do you do the insert?
Yep,
Yeah,
sorry. So you go to the column, click, right click. Sorry, I should have explained that. Sorry, right click, go down to Insert, Table Columns to the left. Give me a thumbs up if you've done that. Great. So then we're going to add in the days here, and they're just consecutive days, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can either type them, or a quicker way to do it is to just do the first two, select them, and then on this bottom right-hand corner, you'll see it turns to a little cross. If you hover over it, drag that down, right down to the bottom, and it will fill it as a series. You can see here it says fill series. You can change if you just wanted to copy it, but this is what we want to happen, is fill series. So just Excel's picks up that is a pattern that you want to create. So now we created a table with a column for day, counting from 1 all the way up to 31, and then the number of complaints for each day. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to create a median, because on a run chart, yep, go for it.
Interrupting.
No, you should do.
To create that, you know, the consecutive numbers.
Yeah.
How do I do it? I put 1, 2 into the day column, and
yep.
then how
so
do
I'll go back a step here. So you got 1, 2 like this.
Yeah.
Then put your mouse over the bottom right-hand corner of that green selection box.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
And then click and drag it down. You see how I'm dragging it down?
Yeah. I've done that.
And
it's done it now.
It's done it now?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Right. So the next thing we're going to do is create a median, because if you remember on the run chart has 2 lines. It has the trend of the points, and then it has a median line. So we want to show the median. So right click on here again and insert a column to the right. And we get another column, a third column, and we're going to label that median. And here we have to create a formula. Okay, a formula in Excel is you know, a calculation. So to start off the formula, if you type equals, and then the function that we're going to use is called median. So if you just type in median, you see that there's a little help text there that says, okay, you're trying to use median. And then as soon as you open up the brackets, so opening the brackets, it will tell you what it wants. And it basically just wants a whole load of numbers. But you don't need to type in the numbers. You can just reference the numbers. So we're going to create the reference by just clicking on the range that we want to create a median. And we want to create a median for all the cells in column B. So we're going to drag from B2. We're just going to, yeah. I'm going to drag from B2 all the way down to be 35. Okay. You might notice that in the expression here, it's not just said B2 to B32. It's actually given it a name, complaints. And that's what I'm talking about in a table. It helps Excel understand what you're trying to do. So if you do that, then close the brackets, click return. It will do that for all the rows. So you get the same median all the way down. Okay. So that's one of the advantages of using a table. So now we got a median, which should be the same for each row. And we got the complaints and we got the day. Then the next thing is we want to create the chart. So again, just selecting any cell within this table will do. And you go to insert. Just a thumbs up if you're all caught up with me.
Sorry, I didn't again.
That's okay.
So just where you created the median,
yeah.
And that's where I got stuck, and close the bracket. That's where I got lost.
Okay, so you need to have the formula that is exactly this: equals, median, open brackets. You can even type this in square brackets, complaints, close square brackets, close rounded brackets. If you type that in, then that should give you the right number.
So do I just enter, or?
Yep, just press return.
It's coming up with me a little window saying there is a problem with this formula.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh, maybe I might have got something wrong there. Just close the bracket earlier. I'll just see now. Oh yeah, it's done it now.
Got it. And have you got 59 all the way down? You got 59 all the way down? Yep, great. So now we've got our table for a run chart. We now need to create the chart. So again, making sure that we've selected one of the cells in the table, go to insert, and then we're going to go to a line chart, which is this icon here. And we want this one here, which is a line with markers. Okay. Now, you'll see that it's not quite understood the data because we've got 3 lines and we wanted to want 2. We got the orange line, which is the complaints, and we got the median, which is the gray line, but then it's also plotted day, and we don't want that. So we can modify this by clicking on select data. And we can delete day, so we can remove that. Okay.
Sorry, James, my screen looks quite different with the things I've got available at the top, and I don't have a chart design.
Okay. I'll come to you in a second. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. I've got design, but it does other stuff.
Right. Okay. Okay. So eventually we've managed to get rid of the day thing, and it's now just showing you consecutive points, and the run chart should look like that. I'll just go back a step for Elvira. So if you go, make sure you got that. You go into insert. Up the top here, you got a whole lot of charts. So do you have a section of your ribbon with all these different charts?
Yeah, I do, but they look a little different. So I'll just have to figure out if you hover over what you're actually going.
So one thing you could do is you could just click
on charts.
Yeah, all charts.
Yeah.
And then on the left there's an icon with a line chart. It's called a line chart.
Yeah, line chart. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I can just pick one of those.
Yeah, and you can pick, and it actually gives you, what you want it to look like. So you can actually do this like that, or you can go in here. So that's actually the one that we want. It's this one here. And there you go.
Oh. Try that one. Let's see. One.
So if everybody's got one of these looking like this, can you give me a quick thumbs up? Great. Excellent. Well done.
It's not there. It looks different.
Yours looks different, Elvira.
Yeah. There's no little line points on it, and I've still got that median line in there. But I don't know what it's. Hang on.
So the median line should be there. The straight line. That should be there. Yeah. And
yeah, so now I've something slightly different now.
So the type of chart, it's probably the type of chart that you. So
yeah,
if you
possibly.
go to all charts, line chart, and then on the top of the line chart, you've got a few different styles. They're different styles, but basically you want one that looks like this with the markers.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got that.
But there are
There's
3
two.
different types of here. This is line with markers. This one is stacked line with markers. You don't want that. And this one is 100% stacked line with markers. You don't want that either. You just want line with markers. And then within this is, you can see these previews. The one that we want is the second preview here. The one where there's 2 lines. So that's the one you want.
Okay, just carry on because it's
Yeah.
having issues now.
Okay, that's okay. So that's a run chart. And as you can see, this run chart, there is some special cause variation because there is 1, 2, 3, 4 runs for 30 data points. And I know off the top of my head, that is some special cause variation. We've also got many consecutive points on a downward, on a downward trend here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 going down. And we've got 5 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going downwards. Yeah, so it breaks a few of the rules, means there's special cause variation. So my assumption would be that at this point in time, around about 8, something happened to reduce the number of complaints coming in. So yeah, so if it was a quality improvement project, you would maybe say that's successful. Or not, who knows? Maybe sometimes reducing the number of complaints coming in is not a good idea. It means you stop listening. Anyway, we'll go on to the next example, which is the Pareto chart data. So if you click on the next sheet, it should look like this. So this example is taken from a car factory where they are trying to see what are the commonest types of repairs they need to do. In the course of a year, of a year, they've counted the different types of things and they've counted them up. So a dent looks like the most common thing, painting, abrasion. So, but we want to work out what counts for 80%. So this one is pretty easy. So first of all, we're going to change this into a table. So click on the cell, go to insert and click table. Make sure the table is headers and click OK. And then we're going to go straight to insert. And we're going to click on recommended charts. And here it will give you a list of recommended charts. And actually, Pareto chart is one of them. It looks like this. So if you scroll down, you find one that looks like that, and it's called Pareto. You click on that, and it gives you a Pareto chart, which is great. And you can see that the 80% mark is which line is it? 20 to 30. I don't know why it's slightly. Oh, the lines are different. So the 80% is there. Now, if we can't quite see what counts for 80%, we can draw something on here. So I'll show you that quickly. Go back to insert, go to shapes, and there you can choose a line. So you choose a line, and then you can draw a line from 80% along. Now you can see how my line is going all wonky like this, up and down, up and down. But if I hold down the shift button, then it goes horizontal. And that's what I want, a horizontal line. So you can just draw that until it crosses the Pareto line. So that's where your 80% mark is there. And then you can draw a line down. We're just going from that point, holding shift again so that it's a straight line down. And you can see it comes comes through the paint category. So in quality improvement, you would include this category if it's included in your Pareto line. So dent and paint would be the ones to focus on here. Give me a thumbs up if you managed to do that.
Didn't quite get the line going down.
Okay. It's all right. Just a bit of practice with these tools up here, just the shapes, and you'll get the hang of it if you just practice it. Yeah. So yeah, that's Pareto chart. Now I just wanted to, is there any questions about that before I show you the last thing? Okay. So what I wanted to show you actually was that Pareto charts are really useful. And I'll show you this. So this is Health Roundtable. This is a data set that a lot of hospitals in Australasia contribute to. Basically, our quality managers now and again, or especially the IT department, give a whole bunch of data from IPM and give it to Health Roundtable, and they process it. And then they create lots of data sets. But one really important data set they collect is mortality. And they provide the mortality data back to us. So this data you can actually download. You might need to ask for access to it, but everybody in the DHB should be able to get access if they want to. So you can actually get raw data from mortality. So one question that we're asking, probably fairly, one question that we might ask, which is a current project, is, so there's a current project going on about called Shared Goals of Care. You might have seen some posters up in the lifts and stuff like that. This project is about trying to ask patients when they come in, what would they want to happen to them if they were so ill that they might die? And the question falls into, do you want us to do everything possible, including resuscitate you? Do you want us to admit you to ICU and put tubes down and all that things? Or do you just want to be looked after as much as possible on the ward, but not go to ICU or a ventilator? Or do you want to be just kept comfortable and allowed to die? So that's Shared Goals of Care. The place where you might want to start that project is the place where people die the most. So one of the questions might be is, where in the hospital do people die? Does anybody know the answer? Have a guess. Where do you think the top place is for people to die in our hospital?
Maybe the cardiac area.
Okay.
Aged care.
Aged care. Okay.
Maybe
Great.
an ED.
ED. Okay. Well, let's go to the data and find out. So you click on this button here. This is not a walkthrough, so I'm just going to show you where it comes. And we can actually go to hospital mortality, go into the latest data set, and here's an Excel spreadsheet for Dunedin, and there's a separate one for Southland. So I've actually already downloaded this and opened it up. Where is it? It is, oh no. I'll download it again, lost it. Okay, it's just opening up. Okay, can you see the Excel spreadsheet that says Health Roundtable? Yeah. So all these come protected and they don't work unless you click this. So if you see a yellow bar up here, you need to click that or else it won't work. So once we get in here, all the data is sitting in this, what's called a pivot table. You can't actually see any of the raw data. These are all summary tables, but the raw data is actually buried in this Excel sheet. And if you know how to use pivot tables, you can get the raw data out of it very quickly. So what we're interested in is the deaths, all the deaths in the hospital within this particular month, quarter. Okay, if in a pivot table, If you double click, you will get the raw data coming up. Here's the raw data. So now you can work with the raw data to ask our question. Our question is, where do people most die in the hospital? Or what's the Pareto 80%? Where should we focus our efforts on to begin with in this project? You got a table here. You can see it's a table, and each row is a patient that's died. Then we're going to analyze this with what's called a pivot table. These are really, really powerful tools in Excel. I highly recommend you spend some time learning how to create and make pivot tables. So you create a pivot table. And in this pivot table, there are all these different fields from that data set. And the one I'm interested in is the discharge unit, because that's the patient, that's where the patient was when they died. So I put that into the rows. And now you can see all the different discharge units listed here. And then we want to know, okay, how many in each of those? And we just need a count, a sum of the count. So that's actually this field here. And now we've got all the different episodes here. Oh no, that's the wrong thing. Let's just go a count of the name, for example. So now we got all the people like that. Now, I think this is, if we look at our data set, this is including both people who died and people who did not die. So what we want is just the deaths. So there is another field here, which should be death. And we can put that into a filter. And we just want the people who died, which is those that equal 1. And there we got the deaths by unit. And now we want to create a Pareto chart. So Pareto charts, unfortunately, don't work directly from pivot tables. So you have to copy the data and paste it into some normal cells. And then insert your Pareto chart, like I showed before. And here's the answer. Oh. Sorry. So general medicine is where most of the deaths happen. And we could ask, okay, whereabouts in general medicine is the most of the deaths going to happen? In fact, over 80% of the deaths are in general medicine. So that's where we're going to start our project. Okay, but whereabouts in general medicine? Well, we could answer that question again. We'll change this discharge unit. There's another one called discharge ward. So let's take the unit off and put the ward on. And we're just going to say, okay, within medicine, general medicine. So now we're looking at deaths in general medicine, which wards is that on? And then we can copy that and paste it over our data here to get rid of that. So now we're looking at internal medicine, respiratory. We could draw a line just to see if we can look at that correctly. So internal medicine, respiratory, southern critical care, and the coronary care unit. So if I was going to do that project, I would go speak to the medics and I would start at internal medicine and get them on board and get them to say, how are we going to do this? Because if we can get this to happen, then hopefully this practice would spread across all of this and really affect the majority of patients. So you can see that actually there's not many deaths in surgery. You think there's a lot of general surgery admissions and people who undergo surgery are at risk of dying, but you can see from this that there aren't that many deaths in surgery. So if you started your project there, you're not going to really make much of a change. Anyway, so that's an example of the power of Pareto charts, and just, you know, it's interesting to see that there's data just sitting there for you if you know where to find it. Any other questions before we go?
No, but thank you, James. It was super helpful. I was very stuck on Excel and trying to enter the data from the study and just getting nowhere. So that really helped a lot today.
Great. Okay, you can find lots of tutorials on Excel for free on the web, and it's worth going through some of them. It really helps. Thanks very much. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thanks, James. Bye.